This week in our Wonderful Day on the Lord broadcast, we have worked our way up to God's dialogue, God's response to Job's complaints and challenges that we found earlier in the book. For the mid portions of the book are all about either Job complaining or defending himself, or his friends challenging him or trying to correct him with bad theology and so forth. So it's a very interesting time going through the Word there. I trust you got some good insights in a lot of ways going through that. But now God is talking to Job, and we've started this week looking at this response of Job to Job from God in chapter 38. And I'm going to kind of review a little bit and kind of put a bunch of pieces together real quickly before we press on. So what God is doing is showing Job that, as Job will admit in chapter 40, his insignificance. That Job, who felt that he was in a position to challenge God. Now, he never thought he was above God or was on God's level. He never went there. But he did feel that he was in a position that he could actually correct the Almighty God of the universe. And so the Lord is showing him the ridiculousness of his position, primarily by showing Job the wonders of his creation. If God could create all these things and control all these things, and then he is the creator of marvelous works that are just beyond our imagination. And that's what God is doing in chapter 38 and in 39, showing Job that his position holds no water at all, and he has a great need for humility here. Now, in chapter 38, we have looked at a number of things. Let me tick these off quickly and review before we press on. We looked at the sea in verses, well, earlier in that actually, we looked at the stars, we looked at creation and so forth in verses 4 to 7. We also looked at the sea. The Lord has created the sea. We take these things for granted. This is kind of why I want to go back through this. These are things we see all the time, either in person or on television or whatever. We take all these wonders of the universe for granted. We're so used to them. And I'm sure Job did the same thing. And so God is showcasing the wonders of himself through creation. And he's saying, now, Job, if you really think about it, could you do any of these things? Could you control any of these things? Do you really comprehend the wonder, the marvelous nature that is around us and what God has created? And that's the kind of thing that God is doing here in the case of Job. So in verse 12 on down, we see the sun. Have you ever in your life commanded the morning? I mean, we take it for granted that the sun comes up, as we say, every day, and it goes down every day. We take that for granted. We don't sit around scientifically figuring this out or being in awe. Sometimes we're in awe of a beautiful sunset or sunrise, but for the most part, we simply accept these things as they are. But they're not just accidents. These are things created, maintained, and orchestrated by God. We have also the depths of the sea in verse 16. Have you entered into the springs of the sea? You don't even know what's down there, Job. It's the incredible creation below the sea that even to this day in our scientific age, some of which we have never seen, and we really don't necessarily know what's down there. He moves on to talk about death in verse 18 and those type of things. Verse 17, concerning death, the gates of death. We don't understand death. We don't know what that looks like. All we know is what God has told us in his word. We've not experienced that. In verse 19, we have light and darkness as well. God created that. In verse 22, we have the weather, the storehouses of the snow, the hail, the rain, and so forth. All of this we take for granted every day of our lives, but we shouldn't. These are incredible marvels that God himself has created. He goes back to the stars in verse 31. And then in verse 39, he begins to talk about the animal kingdom, something he is now going to progress on to talk about in detail in chapter 39. But Job doesn't understand how the animal kingdom really works. And even today, again, we know much. We have a lot of research and so forth, and we get a pretty good handle on a lot of things, but there is so much we do not comprehend about the animal world, the animal kingdom that God has created. All this is from the hands of God. And Job needs to take time to pause and wonder at the greatness and the marvels of God. You and I would be wise to do the same thing as we look at the issues and the challenges that we face in life. Now we're ready for chapter 39 and to press on into more of what God has created. I hope you can join us tomorrow when we do so in chapter 39.